Hello everyone and welcome to the second episode of the 2D text platformer series. In the first episode we created a 2D matrix and added the player. Now we'll add the player movement. So you're going to use input with WASD commands. You cannot move diagonally and you can't pass through walls. But just like in Pac-Man, you can go from one end to the other end, same with top to bottom, if there are no walls in between. Remember, this is the code from last time. But I forgot to mention something last time. Remember, I showed you multiple ways of how to create a 2D list and only some of them work properly. Here's another way. Just like in the top, this also uses a list comprehension. But this uses another list comprehension in between, and that is to create a row. Basically, it does what this here does. Okay, and to show it works, I'll just comment this line and run. You see it works. But since this is longer, I'll delete this and just use this. Now let's continue with the player movement. I'll just use a while true loop. So this runs forever. And since this is just a simple tutorial, for now we'll just print it every time. Here you can press Ctrl C on VS Code to stop. And now you see you can't really differentiate between the two maps. So you don't know where one ends and where the second begins. So I'm going to add an empty print. You can add it here or after that inside the function, but I'm just going to add it down. It's all the same, it's just preference. Okay, now I can also run it, and you see it's much better. What I'm going to do now is add a command. So it's basically just input, and maybe we'll enter command so you understand it. So you see it waits until you give an input. So I can just do anything here, and now I'll close. But if I enter command in here, just for now, if I press, let's say A, you see it stores the small a, right? And if I press a capital A, it stores capital A. So just like many programming languages, Python stores small letters and capital letters differently, right? So to avoid using more complex if statements, we're just going to use dot lower. Then you don't need to check both. Now you can see a small a is just a small a, while a capital A is also small a. Now, okay, so now that makes it easier. I'll clear this, and now we'll add the if logic. So we'll check if command equals, for example, W, and then for now I'll tell it to print go up. Okay, so you see when I print or enter A or D, nothing happens. But if I press W, you see it says here go up, and if I press a capital W as well. So now let's close this. Now to make the player move, we need to keep track of it, and we can use variables for it. Let's say px and py, so basically for player x and player y. And I'll just say 7.5, and here I'll put py and px, because in Python or anything else the row comes first, which is py. Okay, so now what we're going to do is, I'll say matrix, we can actually just copy it from here. Now I'll say the current position, which is where the player was, should be an empty field. Then we'll reduce player y, so py by 1. So this is just a short way of telling reduce py by 1. And now the new value, we are updating it to the new player position. Okay, now if I run, you see it works. Now we go up, and it doesn't work if I press D, for example, right? So I can continue going up. Now what happens? Look, we teleported even though we didn't program teleporting, right? But now look what happens when I try going up again. Now we get a list index out of range. Why is it? Each index or each value has two indexes. What are they? You know the normal thing, which is this is 0, 1, 2, 3 and so on till this would be 9. And the index 10 doesn't exist here, so that would give you a list index out of range error. But the opposite exists as well, but not with -1. -1 is still an existing value. So you know this is 2, 1 and 0. You can go backwards and this would be -1, -2, -3 and so on till -10. Okay, so we came up till here and now the value is -10. We tried going up further and -11 doesn't exist anymore. So it doesn't come back down here. Okay, so to solve this problem, we'll use something called as modulo. So I'll teach it to you in this example. Let's take 23 divided by 4. The decimal answer is 5.75. But the way elementary school students learn it is with quotient and remainder, right? So the quotient is 5, which is just this part here, and the remainder would be 3. So this is modulo, so basically the percentage sign, and that gives you the remainder. Now how is this useful? Let's say the player is here at position 1 or index 1. And now if you want to go left, you'd say -1, which is 0, and modulo 5. Then you stay at 0. Right? But if you try going left again, which is 0 minus 1 is -1, and modulo 5 is 4. So 4 is over here, you go there. And then you do it again, you'd go to 3. But the same happens if you go up. Let's say you're at 4. 4 plus 1 is 5. Modulo 5 is 0. So you go back there. Okay, so it works in both directions. So you can do maths in any direction, but the player stays here. Now that's good. And just to make sure you understood modulo properly, here are a few more exercises. You can check the solution yourself. Here. Okay, so now we'll use modulo in this part. Okay, let's set player y to player y -1, and then we are going to do modulo the width. And let's just run this and see what happens. That works. And that works again, right? So you can just do it 100 times and see it works always. Okay, and now we don't have any walls, but if there are any walls, we don't want it to cross the walls, right? So we just need to add a check for it as well. It's quite easy. I'll just say matrix, and then in here I'll copy that part, because we want to check where the player wants to go to, right? Not where the player already is. And then we'll check if that's an empty dot. So only if it is an empty dot, so it's an empty space, only then can you go there. Of course we can check it now, but just to make sure the code works. Yep. Okay. Now for the other commands, it's just the same. You'd have to change -1 to +1 here and there, and to go left and right, instead of changing py, you change px, right? And you wouldn't use width, instead length. I will show the solution in a few seconds. Try to figure it out yourself. And here's the solution. Okay, so this should work now. If I run, you can see you go upwards. You can do the teleporting, and you can go down as well. You can go right and teleport, and you can go left and teleport. So everything works. That's it for this video. In the next episode, I will teach you how to create custom maps, load it into the game, and also save progress. See you next time. Bye.